Thank you very much. First of all, Parliament doesn't think about it. Different people in Parliament thinks about it. Sometimes I feel that people outside the European Parliament or politics do feel that it's a biological race that are one identity that is thinking in the same manner. I think there are a lot of thoughts, and I think what Peter just said here was, you had one formulation that I like very much. I don't, if I remember it right, you said that banks are like computer farms or data farms. I think that's a quite striking way of describing things. And I would like to share with you some thoughts coming from that point in reality, and that is, first of all, I think a problem with the discussion about cybersecurity is the theme cybersecurity, because it gives most people an impression that it's something rather theoretical and rather up in the air in the cyberspace. I rather say that we should talk about security. When you say cybersecurity, I'm sure that this is not applicable for you here because you're experts in dealing with cybersecurity, so it's so granted what it is about. But I think what we are underestimating is the thing that is coming from when you say that banks are computer farms. What it is it's in the reality. It is not something that is happening out there. It is extremely realistic. Most national defenses have today set up their own military units for cyber warfare. It's quite interesting. It is in order to meet cyber attacks, but also if or when you want to, maybe when you are in a war, to do cyber attacks. There is today no military operations that can be dealt with without having highly developed broadband or internet or telecom structures. It's quite visible in Ukraine just now, when the Russian forces are delivering systems that can strike out the operative systems of the Ukrainian defense forces. You can look on whatever military unit today, and you will see that it is extremely dependent on the cybersecurity. And the same goes for almost all sectors of our society. I'm quite thinking about the fact that when I started to work with the Banking Recovery Resolution Directive, it was very much after the crash of the Lehman Brothers, and those who should try to enter Lehman Brothers in London, they had two main problems when you should deal with the rest of Lehman Brothers and try to resolve it or whatever you should do with it. First thing was the lack of electricity in the building, because they couldn't pay for the electricity, so they had no electricity, which I can tell you is a huge problem. I mean, we are also taking it for granted that we can turn on the lights when we're entering into a building, but if we're entering into a building without electricity, then you are lost. You need to use the stairs in order to come up to the floors. And how the hell do you turn on the computers? Difficult. But they were also out of the computer system. So how do you restore and resolve a bank without having access to a working computer system? I think a problem we have with understanding the perspectives of cybersecurity is that the internet, if I may use that as an expression, it's not all what it is about, but it's so extremely new phenomenon. When the Soviet Union fell, 1991, there was no internet of the kind we know today. It fell without Facebook and Twitter. And also with all this, we had, of course, radio systems and media, etc., but it was of a kind that we had none of these problems we are talking about now. It was a cyber-secure society in that sense. Today, and I think that in history we have never seen such a rapid transformation of a society, of societies, as we have seen with the internet and the digitalization have entered our modern societies. And I would like to say that there is a problem. Far too many people are talking about the digital agenda or the digital society or telecom or whatever as a sector in our society, not as a fundamental base for what we are doing. We need to discuss the telecom issues, they say, or we need to discuss the data issues, and then we find new words like big data, as these things are new. And I'm struck, I was at a seminar recently when a lot of concerned thinkers were talking about the sharing economy. And it struck me, it's not at all new. The first hotels are, of course, sharing economy. And the taxis are sharing economy. It's not new, but it's the magnitude of the technological change that are transforming and modernizing things. And I think this tends to make us feel that these things are new sectors in our society and forgetting that these are in the core of our society. Peter talked about the banks as totally dependent on the computers and the systems functioning and working. We haven't seen a real banking crash. We have seen a lot of banks being attacked by different kind of hackers and cyber attacks. We don't know exactly always where from. Very often from hackers or from anonymous maybe, but of course there is always a theme that it can be of more earnest ways of trying to destabilize our economy. And of course I think it's quite relevant to think about the fact that we could have the next banking crisis evolving from a major attack on our fundamental systems in the financial sector. You can enlarge what you said about banks. I mean, I don't think there is any financial system in our modern economies without electricity and the computer systems. We are totally lost. And that is not only for banks, that are for stock exchanges and a lot of other things. What I'm trying to point to that when we talk about cybersecurity, we tend to define that issue as a separate issue instead of the issue it is. It is about the banks and the financial systems security, and therefore also the security and stability of our economy. If someone, you can have it in different abbreviations, it can be a terrorist movement, it can be Daesh, or it can be hostile power wanting to destabilize us. This is, of course, one of the best ways to do it. Estonia suffered a lot. I think it was 2009, or was it 2008? 2007. Okay. From organized cyber attacks coming from Russia. We know that the U.S. defense are regularly suffering from cyber attacks coming from somewhere in Beijing. And when they trace it, they can always find it rather close in non-military quarters, rather close to the headquarters of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. And most people are quite sure that, of course, there are some links. And then the U.S. administration tells the Chinese, you must not do that, that's not polite, and then the Chinese say, we're not doing it. And no one believes that. The Chinese knows that U.S. don't believe them, and U.S. knows that the Chinese are lying. And then the U.S., of course, I can imagine, is trying to set up, well, I wouldn't even say set up cyber warfare units. I think they have since quite a long time. We have noticed that by different reasons. What I'm trying to point out that from my perspective, this is not a computer issue or an internet issue or cyber issue. This is an issue about the fundamental stability and security of our societies. And I think that even we who are here today, we're underestimating the magnitude of the change that we have seen in our societies when the internet emerged. Internet is a very new technology. I mean, the modern internet as we know it emerged in 1995 or something like that. But still it has fundamentally changed all parts of our society. But I don't think we have taken that in. Too many people are talking about these issues as special issues. So what should we do about this? I think we need to think about our computer systems, the internet, and our broadband systems as the more fundamental and crucial infrastructure of our societies. If we are under threat, we would defend railways, bridges, capitals, headquarters, etc. And I think we need to look upon these fundamental infrastructure in the same way. There is a question, shall we meet this on EU level or on some other level? I think we shall meet it and face these problems on the relevant level, and sometimes that could be EU level, but very often it is the level of the systems as such. It can be national, it can be business sector, it can be whatever. I think if I just take banks as an example, because my point is that this is not only about banks, but I think we need to have a serious incident reporting. And the problem is that banks are very eager not to be forced to incident reporting because they don't want to say that they are being hacked. Because when they say they are being hacked, a lot of their customers are hesitant to use the services, and then they use this business opportunity, and suddenly they have the mad dream that people are back and visiting them in the banks. And bankers don't want to meet any people anymore. So banks or other institutions dependent on the internet are very non-eager, so to say, to do incident reporting. But I think we need to force that through in the sense that if it is of a public interest, we need to have public rules about it. That is the first thing. The second thing is we need also to secure that we on a either member state level or maybe on the European Union level also have a follow-up of the reporting, drawing conclusions. What can we learn? Because if one bank or one institution, whatever it is, and once again it's not only about banks, is exposed for these attacks, then there is a lot of learning and consequences to be taken in order to safeguard you. We can never have a totally secure system anywhere, but in some way we need to see to that we on a societal level, on a European Union level, and on a member state level, and on a business sector level are facing up to the threats that are emerging all the time. And my take on this is it is not very technical. It is, in this sense, very broad. I think it would be wrong to be technical about this. I think the right approach is to see that this is a broad societal challenge and we need to face it as such. Thank you.